tell by my attitude that I most definitely from. Hey.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of This Week in Startups. It is episode 51. We have a very special guest today. Joel Spolsky is going to be Skyping in hot on the trail of his recent funding for Stack Overflow. Congratulations to him. We know he called in earlier and talked about it. Let's get right to the program. I want to try within the first 60 seconds to get a caller on the line for Ask Jason. Let's do that. Who do we have on the line? Looks like we have Craig on the line. And Craig, you have a question for us on This Week in Startups, episode 51.
Hey, Jason.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Where are you calling from? I'm great.
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York? Where?
Yep.
Syracuse?
Yeah, just outside of Albany.
Just outside of Albany, okay. And you're getting ready for a beautiful spring up there. Summer is amazing in the Catskills.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're calling from upstate New York, and you have a question for us. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I recently started a company called reloom.com, and my question is, what do you do if you have someone like a successful entrepreneur who wants to get involved in your project but can't currently commit full-time? Do part-time co-founders work, or are there better options for working with someone in this situation?
Okay, this is a great question. And the site is Reloom, R-E-L-O-O-M.
Yep.
Okay, and I have it up on my screen. And so your question, should you consider a part-time co-founder? What are the pros and cons?
Right.
Generally speaking, being part-time is okay when you're in the speculative stage. However, once you get serious about something and you're going to put money into it, you're going to dedicate serious time to it, you're going to want to be full-time. Part-time does not work if you were going to open a restaurant, if you're going to do Google, if you were going to make a movie. You have to dedicate 100% of your energy towards the project. This concept of part-time entrepreneurship, generally, that builds a dude business. And what I call a dude business is like dude in a website or a couple of dudes in a website. And they build it on the side, and maybe they make, you know, a couple $1,000s a month from it or something. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But at a certain point, you got to get serious. And also, there's an inequity between the part-time people and the full-time people that you're going to have to deal with, which is you're going to be like, why is this guy getting so many shares in the company when I'm full-time and they're putting in 20 hours a week? It's better that everybody's 100% dedicated. Now, you do have times when people need money. And so maybe it's better to get half of them than none of them. And you just have to monitor the issue, and you have to talk it out in terms of equity. So what you need to say to the person is, listen, if you were full-time, I would be 50-50 partners with you. If you're going to be half-time, I would be 75-25 partners with you. If at some point you want to become 50-50 partners again, I am open to that discussion. We need to have it. We need to memorialize it in a letter agreement, a contract, something. And that generally works out pretty fair. What you don't want to do is just say, OK, we're partners on this project, and then you get into this resentment, et cetera. Put all the cards on the table, say how many hours a week you're working on it, tell them how many hours you expect them to work on it, agree on something, and then move forward. Tyler, anything to add?
From a macroscopic level, it's not ideal. I mean, historically...
Did you say macroscopic?
Macroscopic.
I think it's either macro or it's microscopic, one or the other.
No, it's microscopic and macroscopic.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I've never heard anybody say macroscopic, but OK.
You've heard me say it before. What do you mean you never heard me
All right.
say it
Well,
before?
somebody tell me in the chat room if actually Tyler's making up words again. But OK, in the macro perspective, there's a problem in...
Well, how many people have done this historically and done it well? What's the precedence for stuff like this?
Part-time people?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at YouTube...
Part-time co-founders.
Yeah. YouTube had 3 founders. One of them left early.
Yeah, Jared.
Yeah, and he wound up getting, I don't know, $50 million. The other guys wound up getting $250 or $300 million. So in that case, I think the other 2 founders probably felt pretty bad about that. And there's a little resentment there. And nothing breeds resentment like success.
Cash, yeah.
And cash. So I think, yeah, it's one of those things where talking and being clear is the best medicine.
But I think you also would need to bake in some sort of understanding of maybe this person will have to fade off and not be participating? Because there's, I think, a decent percentage likelihood that the person is going to potentially fade and not be able to participate.
And this is why you would do, this is why all startups do a 4-year vest. So even at Mahalo, my own company, my own idea, I have to vest 4 years. And why do they do that? The VCs say, you know what? Hey, if I'm going to put millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars into this company, I don't want you getting all your stock and in month 9 or month 14 leaving, and now you've taken a big chunk of the equity and you're gone. What do we do? And so everybody has to vest, and that's what they should do.
Now, in my situation, this is like a successful entrepreneur who I'd really like to get involved, just because he has a lot of, experience and more clout than I would.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if does that change it at all? Like,
yes.
Could I get him involved for other reasons?
He doesn't need to. This person, he or she, does not need to be a founder. They could be an advisor. So, what percentage of the company are you thinking of giving this person, and for how much work?
I think he could work maybe 10 to 20 hours a week on it.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. An advisor role is usually a very small percentage, right? I don't know if he'd be willing to do that or more.
Okay, so this guy's going to work quarter time on it. A week, a month, let's call it.
Okay.
And what were you thinking of giving him for this?
Maybe somewhere in the 10% range.
If you think that he is going to put that week in for 2, 3, 4 years, you can express how you feel about this to him and say, I would like you to be a co-founder. I respect you. I think you'd bring in enormous value. And so I'd like to offer you 10% of the equity in exchange for putting in 4 years, just like I'm getting whatever you're getting, 50% or 80% after the stock option pool, for putting in 4 years. And I will vest the same way you will. And if you say it that way to people, and I like to do this myself in my own companies, which is be able to say, like, listen, I have essentially the same deal you have. I vest on the same terms, I have the same issues, et cetera. It just makes it easy. So just, you can always fall back on that and, put out the best, most fair deal you can and listen for feedback. And don't worry about silence when you're in a negotiation. Silence is your friend in a negotiation. So when you say, I think 10% would be equitable if you put in 4 years, then stop. Don't. Quiet.
Okay.
Just listen and wait. The amount of time he takes to answer, the look on his face, consider all these things, and have this discussion in person, not over email or instant message.
Okay.
You understand why?
Yeah.
It's very easy for people to get upset over email, very easy for people to be snippy over instant message. All discussions about compensation, all discussions about equity should be had in person. All discussions about being hired, fired, resigning, etc. Best to have in person, so that you bring that human element and you can see for that reaction. So good luck with it, and keep us in the loop. What is Reloom? Give you your final plug here. What is it?
It's in the augmented reality realm.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, like Tonchi from TechCrunch 52 years ago.
Yep.
Awesome.
And, like Layer, kind of, but what it presents to you is going to be a lot different than any of those.
Excellent.
So.
Well, we are big fans of the augmented reality, and certainly good luck with it. And I see that you have one follower on Twitter. You now have 2 followers on Twitter, and I'm sure the Jason Nation will sign up for the Twitter account Reloom. And I see that you've also selected people to follow, and you selected Reid Hoffman.
Yep.
Is that a little bit of a tell? Is that the person we're talking about?
No, he's just someone who I like a lot. So.
Oh, okay. I like him too. He's a great guy. All right. Good luck with it.
Thanks.
You know who I like a lot too?
One of the sponsors. I'm going to take a wild guess.
I love
here.
WebSpy. WebSpy provides a transparent view of your organization's internet, email, and network usage. This is what you need to do. You need to go sign up for WebSpy and give it a try. WebSpy. What great guys. Go give it a try. Monitor all kinds of server activity, from the employee internet access to mail service to web hosts. Analyze for traffic levels, patterns, errors, and more. It is a total log analysis solution. And these logs pick up all activity, so you can see things that you can't block with any other available solution. WebSpy has been a fantastic, fantastic supporter of the show. The reason you get the show for free every week, consistently. We did 50 shows in the last year. We're going to do 50 over this year. If we split the show into two, we'll do 100 over this year. WebSpy has been a supporter of independent media that costs a lot of money to produce.
They're on the cutting edge.
There are 7 employees at This Week in Studios. 7. It's not cheap to do this high quality level. And I'm not just talking about my performance every show. I'm talking about the lighting, I'm talking about the technical things, I'm talking about the microphones, I'm talking about the 3 engineers out there. I mean, we got 3 full-time engineers. We got a social media ninja doing all this stuff. And WebSpy makes that possible. They have a great product. Go check it out. And hey, go follow them on Twitter and thank them on Twitter. Thank you at WebSpy for being a supporter of independent media. And of course, the next segment that everybody loves is Shark Tank. Shark Tank. Let's do Shark Tank.
I need money. What I want, that's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. What I want, that's what I want.
I think your idea is beyond brilliant. Who said that?
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Is that not why you've come here?
Are you here?
Okay, Shane, you are on the line. Shane, do I
Yes.
have Shane on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Shane, I hear you 5 by 5. I read you 5 by 5. This is home base, Santa Monica, California.
All right.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from New York City.
New York City, New York, my hometown. The town, so nice, they named it twice. How are you guys doing there with all the incompetent terrorists?
Say that again?
How are you guys doing with all the incompetent terrorists?
I think we're pretty cool about it. We realize that they're not that competent. So people here don't seem to be as worried as people everywhere else, at least from my perspective.
I think that's true. As a lifelong New Yorker, I know they will never bow to terrorists. And even more than that, we will make fun of them and give them the finger any chance we get. David Letterman last night was just made a million jokes about this clown.
It's really the wrong city to
F with.
to F with, yeah. Because
In the same way Tel Aviv is the wrong city to F with.
yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, look what happened to Afghanistan. You know, like, it's just don't F with New York, or else you're probably going to have your country leveled.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what these people in Pakistan are thinking. I know it's not the whole country,
Yeah.
but, and I know this is a lone wolf kind of syndrome, but just as a total aside, I don't think it's advisable to go after New York City if you don't want your country leveled, because God forbid somebody does another attack there, and if it comes out of Pakistan, I mean, I think this is what Osama bin Laden and these guys want. Not that this guy's associated with them. They want us to go attack Pakistan because they know that Pakistan's got nukes. It could set the whole thing off. I think we got to be smart about that. But anyway, my thoughts go out to all my friends and family and fellow New Yorkers. And I just want to say, very proud of the way you guys reacted to it. And, I was thinking about you. So, you know the rules of Shark Tank.
Yep.
You have 60 seconds to make or break your career. I'm going to ask no pressure. I'm going to ask everybody in the chat room to rate your presentation on a scale of 1 to 10, both for the presentation, the pitch, if you will. 10 would be the perfect pitch. 2 or 3 would be like Jimmy Wales speaking. And then I want them to rate your idea. 10 would be a brilliant idea, like Mint, say, or Yammer, Red Beacon, like great ideas that have done very well at TechCrunch 50. And Tyler, you're ready to score. Chat room is ready to score. I'd like to get a yes from everybody in the chat room. Yes, yes, Commander, we are ready. And when I see that everybody is ready, I would like to see a yes, Captain, in the chat room. Okay, I'm getting my yeses from Monkey 3. Excellent. We have the clock set at 1 minute. Are you ready, Shane?
I am ready, Jason.
Okay. And an interesting question coming up there, TWiST flag. Is Jason part of TechCrunch Disrupt in New York? I am going to be there, and there'll be more on that situation very soon. Although I don't want to jump the gun, there will be more on the TechCrunch Disrupt, TechCrunch 50, etc. situation coming soon. Correct, Tyler?
Yep.
And it should be pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah.
Very exciting news coming. As soon as next week. So, in 3, 2, go.
All right. I'm building a web startup called Dino.sr. or Dinosaur. It's a social site that's essentially the GDGT for gamers. So the site revolves around video games you've played, beaten, want to play, or in progress. And there's a twist, because Dinosaur is a game itself. So users get rewarded by participating. They earn points to level up and unlock features for their profile, get badges and artifacts based on accomplishing tasks, and even earn tangible rewards like discounts on video games and entrance to events. So there's also a Foursquare-like element where a user can earn the position of a game boss for a particular game page, which means they get benefits like getting to be in charge of the Q&A for that page, and special perks like beta keys for new games or whatever else we can hook up with the game companies. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And gaming is an enormous industry, and it's growing. And we'll make money with affiliate commissions on selling games, selling virtual goods on our own site, leveraging our user data to deliver targeted advertising, and eventually through hosting events and tournaments. And the big vision is to build a comprehensive database of information on every game ever created, from Atari to Xbox to iPad to even board games.
Excellent.
And become the IMDb of gaming. Phew,
Okay.
that was it.
There you go. You did it in just over 60 seconds. You heard the clock go off. I'm going to ask everybody in the chat room to rate the pitch. So put pitch, colon, the number, and then idea. I see 8.7, I see 8.6, I see 7.5 and 8. Great pitch. Mascot looks cool. People like that. Pitch 8.5, idea 7, pitch 8. Vez Quicks says, not bad. 7.7, 8, 6.3, 7.5, 7.5, 7.9, 8.7, 8.7, 8.7, 7.6, 6.5, 8.6, 7, 6.5. Pitch went a little too long. 8.6, 7.6, 8.6. You're right in the 8. Let's call it the 7 zone. You're right in the 7 zone, which is pretty good on both things. And so, Tyler, what are your thoughts?
Pitch I wasn't crazy about. It had this speedy, monotone. I think you pick fewer words and pick your word battle very carefully instead of trying to give in the whole. And if you order now, and we'll throw in 2 knives. It just kind of.
It was a little dense.
Yeah.
And he could have might have been less.
Yes, less
so
a little more. Yeah.
you went for it's the GDGT, it's got profiles, and it's the Foursquare, and it's the IMDb. So when somebody says, I'm building the Foursquare, IMDb, and the GDGT, you're basically watering it down at a certain point. You don't need to say you're like every single thing on the planet, right? I mean,
Right.
I think GDGT did a pretty good job. I understand GDGT has information. I'm an investor in GDGT on the board of it, so obviously I know about it, so it's a good move using that as an analogy. If you're going to a VC and you use one of their previous companies, you're playing to their ego a little bit, so that's smart. And so I like the pitch as well. What did you rate the pitch?
Pitch, I'm going to give a 6.5.
6.5. If you cut out a little extraneous stuff?
Yeah, the good news is it's far easier to get simpler than to.
Right.
Yeah, so you have your work cut out for you. You're obviously smart, and you just.
Yeah. So if you edited it a little bit, what would you pop up to?
It could easily be a 8.
Yeah. So I have a similar thing. I was going to give it like a 7. Maybe 7.5. I'm not as critical on the technical details as Tyler is, having been the person who helped coach people for 3 years on the TechCrunch 50 event, and also coaches everybody for the Open Angel Forum. So you did a really good job on the pitch. Everybody agrees on that. The idea?
The idea, it can be huge. I mean, gaming is the new entertainment. It's
right.
The new TV, the new movie. You know.
Absolutely.
And there's still yet to be these huge dominant things.
There is not a vertical social network in gaming that I know of. I do know people are adding social features to gaming, and so I think you have something there. Execution is going to be very hard. Acquiring customers, very hard. But once you do get people in there, it could become potentially sticky.
Yeah.
So it's a long, slow road, and you're going to have a hard time and a challenge getting the viral loop going. So my first question to you is, how are you going to get distribution? How are you going to market this?
Good question. So I've been building websites for a long time, and I'm also a writer for Mashable and Gizmodo. I'm actually in the Columbia Journalism School right now, and really involved in social media. And for the last little while, my website business has turned into creating viral pieces for campaigns. And so part of the strategy will be sort of making Dinosaur this viral sort of site where, you know, we're going to do a content strategy. We're going to produce stuff to try and get eyeballs through, you know, Dig and some of these other places. We're also going to recruit a crew of early people to go in and start using the site and building the foundation of the community, so that when people arrive, there's already a community going on. And we're going to be holding a huge launch event, and we're going to do subsequent parties to start a network effect from there. So basically, the idea is to recruit some of the core people that will spread it from there.
Great. So you're going to take the same approach as GGGT, pre-populate, have good people involved in it. Is your Twitter account DINOSR?
We reserved it, but we haven't done anything on it yet.
Okay, so people can go follow DINOSR on Twitter. You now have 1 follower. Congratulations. I've just followed it. I think it's a good idea. What's the state of the company? Is it you? Is it a couple founders? Have you raised angel money? You're putting your money in yourself? Do you have day jobs? Take us through the corporate scenario.
Okay, it's me and one other guy. We're both graduating from grad school in 1 week, and site's about half done. We were planning on launching it this month, but graduation kind of took precedence. So
who's building the site? Who's doing the coding of the site?
I am, and my partner.
What language is it written in?
Ruby on Rails.
Ruby on Rails. Are you a programmer? How long have you been programming for?
I've been programming for about 3 years. I started out in design, and this other guy, he's a CS major.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. So, and as far as the, I'm sorry, I totally blanked on the first.
No problem. So basically, you guys are funding. You guys are building it yourself. No funding. Doing it at nights and weekends, or blowing off class, or maybe even doing it during class. To be frank, because you have your laptop open anyway.
Yeah, and actually, I'm graduating. My other websites are supporting me at this point, and I've turned down full-time job offers coming out of graduation so I can do this.
Great.
So I'm 100% in on it.
Awesome. I think it's very interesting. I'd like to encourage you to apply to the Open Angel Forum. I think it's got legs, and I'd like to hear more about it. I'm going to ask superfan Scott Simcoe, who is the blogger for This Week In Startups, to do a follow-up with you and get more information. And well done, well done.
And we're going to announce the Boston date any day now.
Oh, good. Yeah. And where are we going to do it in Boston?
The Dog Patch Boston.
Maybe the Dog Patch Boston.
And it's going to be 2nd or 3rd week in June.
Cool. Cool. Are our friends over at Polaris going to sponsor the Open Angel Forum on a national basis, you think?
That is to be determined, but
TBD?
Currently we're doing the Boston.
Okay.
So.
All right, very good. All right, thanks for calling in. Shane, how many, when did you first start listening to This Week in Startups? Do you have a favorite show?
I started listening in the fall. Yeah.
Favorite show, favorite guest?
You know, I mean, I really like Peter and Ryan from GDGT, partly because of my journalism background, and that was the first show I saw, and, hence my startup too. So.
Awesome. Okay, we will talk to you soon, and thank you for calling in.
Hey, thank you.
Great. Okay, so we're making good progress. Thanks to DNA Mail, they've made great progress in building a business of value. DNA Mail, everybody loves DNA Mail. It's a complete hosted exchange solution. SharePoint and CRM, $295 a month. Holy cow. You can import your mailboxes over there too. FTP importing of your mailboxes, easy to use, upload interface. Start saving money by switching to us. Take that old exchange server that keeps crashing and you keep putting extra hard drives in it, throw it away, go with a hosted solution like DNA Mail, and your life will be better forever. I promise you. And also they do the Google stuff too. So they're a Google partner, and you can, if you want to use the Google app, you can do that stuff with them. All kinds of great stuff. DNA Mail, of course, sponsoring the show from the beginning, and what great partners they've been. I'm really thrilled to have our next guest on. He is a legend. A lot of people say that we are kindred spirits because we are both from New York, outspoken, and both I think very similar in terms of our approach to startups. I mean, we probably differ on some of the finer points, but I think we're both sort of killer entrepreneurs who have built businesses, from scratch without venture capital. But I'm thrilled that Joel Spolsky is here with us, and he has raised venture capital. I think he called in about 10 weeks ago talking about raising venture capital. That was a great call in. Very flattering to have him call in. And Joel, are you there?
I sure am.
Wow, the Skype thing looks great.
Much better than the phone call, right?
Yeah, it's like perfect. It's flawless. Well, you have a great connection there, I'm assuming, over at Fog Creek.
Temporarily, until everybody starts watching the show in the offices down the hall.
Yeah, and then it's over. So tell us about your fundraising adventure and what the end result of it was.
Okay, I'll go backwards. We raised $6 million from Union Square Ventures, Ron Conway, Naval Ravikant, Nirav Tolia, a whole bunch of other people that I'm forgetting right now. Sorry, guys. But a pretty long list. Oh, Chris Dixon, Katarina Fake, Micah Siegel, and Bob Pasker. I think I might have the whole list there. And they chipped in $6 million to fund Stack Overflow. as you know, I called you. When was it? You said 10 weeks ago. Really?
Something like
Is
that.
that how long it took? And you told me it would only take 6 weeks, so you were off by about 4. But that was pretty much our fault. What had happened is that somebody who will remain unnamed came to us, and a pretty reasonable VC from a first-rate firm that really understood our business and clearly got it, and was excited about Stack Overflow. And he said, "Hey, let me fund you." And we had thought, okay, maybe in the long run we might take some VC, but we weren't. It wasn't the next thing on our agenda. And that's pretty much when I called you and said, should we just go with him? For some reason, I was thinking in my head, and this is sort of always a bad business move, not to look at the market before you take an offer, but I was thinking, he'll probably come in with a market offer. What's the big deal? I like the guy. Let's just do it. And so I called you, and you said, no, you should pretty much definitely do the rounds of the Sand Hill Road and see what else is available. And that's what we did. I talked to, at least 20 people over the course of 2 weeks. It really only took, seconds to get introductions and appointments with just about every major first-year firm. We talked to them all. They all liked us. There were some for whom we weren't a great fit. Either the amount was too large or too small, or the company had a geographic focus, and we probably shouldn't have been talking to them anyway. But generally, they all liked us, and we were getting very, very positive responses. And we already pretty much had an outstanding offer, even before I got on the plane to California, from Union Square Ventures here in New York. And they are almost certainly the best VC out there for an entrepreneur. Maybe not necessarily for an investor, but probably also for an investor, because I think those things follow. A VC that's a good VC for an entrepreneur is going to be good for their investors. And they're pretty much number one. I mean, there might be some others. I don't know.
Certainly on the East Coast. I've known Fred Wilson for a long time. Full disclosure, one of my first jobs, I knew his partner in Flatiron Partners, Jerry Colonna, who I met when he was investing in Lycos, and there were 3 employees at Lycos. And I was a consultant for Flatiron Partners, reading business plans for them. One of the business plans I read was something called Beverly Hills Internet, which became GeoCities. They invested in, that made their first fund, and that made their careers. Jerry Colonna didn't go on to do Union Square Ventures, but Fred did. And Fred is actually an angel investor in Mahalo. Been a good friend for a while. And actually his wife, Joanne, and I worked together for a couple of years doing Silicon Valley Reporter. She was key to the success of my first company. So he is great. Fred's a great blogger. He's passionate. He's incredibly centric when it comes to entrepreneur-centric. And when I was an entrepreneur in residence at Sequoia, I begged him to do 2 deals, Mark Pincus and Zynga and Evan Williams and Twitter. And Sequoia wound up passing on those 2 deals, and Fred wound up getting both of those deals. And I was actually advising both of the entrepreneurs as well, Mark and Evan, who I know very well. And I was saying, well, Sequoia's incredible, and Fred's incredible. Flip a coin, do both. You couldn't do better between those 2 firms. Sequoia's got a bigger name, and Fred is just an awesome guy. Maybe he doesn't have as big a name, but he's certainly awesome. And
I think there's sort of 2 generations there, really. I think Sequoia is from I don't want to say that from the old generation, because they're obviously still killing it, but Sequoia is sort of there's a younger generation for whom, if you said, what are the top firms, who would you want your investors to be, they're going to list a bunch of names that you might not have known about 5 years ago. So it would be Union Square Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz. They would list folks like Excel, who I guess Facebook. They were in earlier. But until Facebook, they were, I think, probably secondary. So there really is kind of a new gen and old gen. And in fact, that happens inside the firms too. So you could go to Benchmark, for example, and there's an old generation of partners there, and then there's a new generation of partners that are much younger and much more with it and hipper. And I saw the same thing when I went to Greylock, and I expected, the same people that screwed Ars Digita, and I found a bunch of, a later generation that were much better.
So let's go into the strategy right now. I know you guys, and just again, full disclosure, we both have a business in the same sort of area. We're both doing question and answer. We both realize that that's a really interesting space where a lot of innovation should occur. And as I told Fred when I congratulated him on the deal, I said, really, Joel, Quora, and Vark, and Mahalo are really the only people who are innovating in the Q&A space. Yahoo Answers, they haven't innovated that product in years, and it's got 300 million people globally, so obviously there's a big opportunity here.
Yahoo Answers is the only one I would really talk about specifically, and they're a chat room. If you look at what's going on in Yahoo Answers, it's a chat room for teenage girls.
Yeah.
It's not monetizable. It's not answers. It's a chat room.
Yeah.
The other that's why they have so much traffic, and now that's also why it monetizes so poorly, which is what you would expect from a chat room. The other ones I can't really say that much about. There, I see them as more direct competitors. I see Mahalo as being one of the most active right now, but you keep trying to pay people to provide answers, and until you stop doing that, you're just not going to compete, Jason.
It's interesting. The virtual currency is an interesting driver. I guess we just turned the interview around. But it is but only one driver. I was like, yeah, wow.
Back to me.
But actually, you had a very good point. You had a very good point on one of your podcasts, which was you should pay the people who write questions. And we actually did do that. We have started sharing the virtual currency, the AdSense revenue, with the people asking questions. And some people are making $100 Mahalo for asking a great question. So that was something that you hit on at the same time.
It's the quality of the questions. It really is. Yesterday, I went on to answers.com just for kicks, and the #1 question up there today, and I don't really see them as well, I guess they're in the space, right? Answers.com. They have sort of a wiki answers kind of product. And the question I found up there was, what is it like in Texas? And the answer was, Texas is a country. And the whole thing surrounded by Google ads, absolutely plastered with completely irrelevant Google AdSense. The quality of that page might be possibly the lowest quality page on the internet today. I mean, it would be hard to make something worse than that because it didn't even have entertainment value.
I concur. And so your strategy is you have the 3 sites that are getting 6 or 7 million people on a global basis. Very impressive start. And they're all technical based. You had people being able to pay to create their own Q&A sites, like a white label product, which we have one as well. Didn't work out so well. You sort of reeled that back in, and now you're going to just build your own vertical ones, like sort of a Weblogs Inc. or Gawker of Q&A sites.
That was the way we started at the beginning of the VC pitch. By the time we got to the end, we had figured out the strategy a lot better. The model now, I mean, this is a classic, what everybody's calling a pivot, right? Like, hey, that model's not working. Let's change something else. You know, the white label model was clearly not working. We got out of that a handful of pretty decent sites that are nice sites where people get good answers, but we only got one maybe site that's really killing it, and that's mathoverflow.net, which is the #1 site by far for math PhDs to ask really, really hard questions about math at the PhD level. And it's just got enormous traffic and enormous traction in that very narrow, very technical niche, and that's what we consider to be a great site. That's what we're excited about, not teenage chat and not what is Texas like. We're looking for, you know, differential equations being the minimum level of entry, right? So that model wasn't really working. We certainly want to keep alive any sites that were built under the first model. We're going to keep them alive. We're not even going to charge them, and we'll protect those sites for as long as we can, and as long as they continue to add some value. But going forward, what we really want to do is let the community figure out what else they want to do Q&A about. And we're going to build a site. Right now, you can see sort of the genesis of this happening at Stack Exchange, where pretty much anybody can go and say, hey, wouldn't it be awesome to have a Q&A site about statistics, about data visualization, about GIS systems, about guns, about tax law. And those topics are proposed and discussed. And the ones that seem to have a lot of traction through a completely democratic and automated process will just get created. You can see the sites you're scrolling through right there on the Stack Exchange list. Those ones are sites that were created under the initial rules of Stack Exchange. Right now, if you go to meta.stackexchange.com, you'll see a whole bunch of conversation going on about, hey, what other sites should we create? These Meta Stack Exchange sites, these new Stack Exchange sites are going to be owned by the community. They're not going to be owned by an entrepreneur and an individual paying us money. They're going to be owned by the community. The content in them is going to come from the community. It's going to be Creative Commons licensed. And each of these sites will basically get created. We'll host it. We'll sponsor it. And what we're trying to do is make a big old network where people can have very, very technical conversations, very, very detailed, long-tail questions amongst experts.
Great. It's pretty fantastic, and it's surprising how 2 entrepreneurs can come to the same conclusion like we both did at the same exact time. It's exactly what happened with Nick Denton and I. He had 2 blogs. We created 10, and then we learned from him, and he learned from us, and we just kept iterating and iterating. It was a wonderful competition, and it was very collaborative, in fact, so hopefully we'll have the same thing. Let me ask you this. Quora, Vark. We saw Vark get bought for 50 million. Basically a feature, never had any traffic. What do you think of the overall feature, which we actually are working on here at Mahalo, the routing of questions to the right person, the sort of Vark or Quora-like feature, which actually came from Nate in Korea. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a feature you're going to add? Is it a feature that you think is important? Is it a nice feature but not a game changer? What do you think?
Boy, you know what? It's kind of interesting. When I started doing the rounds in Silicon Valley, I met a lot of people that have worked on other Q&A sites. I won't name names, but you know, up to and including Yahoo Answers, the big quote-unquote winner in the space. And what a lot of them said is that they were focused on this thing that they called liquidity. They had made up this word, liquidity. I'm going to start using it because it sounds cool. And liquidity in the finance market is when the market clears, right? Every buyer finds a seller, and every seller finds a buyer. And in the Q&A market, liquidity means if a question is asked, it gets answered, and there are questions available for somebody who wants to answer questions. And that's what they called liquidity. And I said, it's really interesting that all you guys are focused on this metric that we never paid any attention to. And I tried to figure out why in Stack Overflow we never had to worry about that. And I realized that from day one, every question got an answer. I mean, we had this, it was sort of never a problem for us how to get quality answers or how to get questions answered. That seemed to just sort of work for us. So it was one of those weird things that we never focused on. And when I hear people trying to solve that problem of liquidity in some way, maybe, you know, why are you trying to route the question to the right person? Because you need to get it answered. If you're trying to solve that problem, you are so far behind me, no offense, that I'm not even going to worry about you for a moment. I feel like we have sort of, you know, 2 years ago, we achieved liquidity the day that we opened Stack Overflow to the first beta testers.
And obviously the reason for that is you're doing a niche site. If you're on the site, you care about coding. If you're on the site, you care about math. It's not a general answer Q&A site. Therefore, the routing of questions has already been taken care of. We've narrowed the pool of questions down from 100 million to 100,000 or 10,000. Good question.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And I know who you're talking about. I'm going to take a guess here. Andrew from Excel Partners, I just pulled it up, who worked on Yahoo Answers. Wild guess, but I have a feeling that that's the person.
You know what? I heard the word liquidity from Yahoo Answers people. I heard it from a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Nirav. What did Nirav Tolia work on? He worked on some site that had answers. I don't know. I don't think it was Yahoo.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the pitching in Santo Road. I gave you a little bit of advice on it. You went. Take me through the scenario of what it was like going to each firm, how much time they gave you, how they behaved, just a little bit of color on what the meetings were like. Were you a little bit nervous coming in there to some of these firms? And you know, any color you can provide on the process.
I tend not to get nervous about this stuff. I know other people do. I don't know why. It's just my nature. I don't get nervous speaking in public. I don't get nervous speaking to VCs. It wasn't really that. In fact, the truth is I wasn't even that prepared for a lot of these events. I knew kind of what points I wanted to make. I had sort of prepared a little bit of a pitch deck because people kept asking me to email them something that they could show their colleagues. And so I had prepared, you know, a little 10-page Word document that covered, you know, maybe you read it in 3 or 4 minutes and you get the basic idea of what we've done, you know, what our traction level is and so forth. And pretty much what I did is I just walked through the story. I just sat down and I told the story. Sometimes if I had a laptop and a projector, I would show the sites as I went through it. If I didn't, I would just kind of explain it using hand waving. We went in, you know, so much of the way VC works, especially classic Sandhill VC first-tier firms, is there's a back channel. And by the time you're talking to a VC and you're pitching, they have heard about you from 27 sources. They've asked all their programmer friends, all of whom said, yeah, I use Stack Overflow all the time. It's awesome. You got to invest in this guy. And so by the time I got there, you know, the VC would introduce himself and say, you know, I got 5 people sending me emails saying I had to meet with you, so I figured I should. They usually went really, really well. There were some exceptions. That I spoke to a couple of VCs who were unbelievable bozos, who were like, well, where are your financial projections? You don't have financial projections? I'm telling you, Joel, this is a bad pitch. And
really?
So needless to say, I'm not. I mean, it's very bizarre when you're pitching to Mark Andreessen, Fred Wilson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get to some 4th-tier guy you've never heard of who does, you know, Pacific Northwest or something like that. And he yells at you for having a bad pitch because there's no made-up Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of false numbers on it.
Yeah.
And I just said, you're right. Thank you so much for that excellent advice. Bozo bit flipped. Sorry.
It's so funny, too, because, you know, there's a negative correlation between the success and the requests like this. Like, is that right? Yeah, the more successful they are, they're not going to ask these kind of stupid questions.
Yep.
You know, I've pitched all these people, and they generally look at the product. They look at the entrepreneur, and they just holistically say, what's going on here? Is this a great entrepreneur in a great market that there's potential? And in your case, it's obviously a great market, obviously a great entrepreneur. The only thing to really discuss is the deal terms, and if there's something competitive in your portfolio, perhaps. Otherwise, you're probably going to get a reasonable offer. What I like about the way you did it, and you had the wherewithal to do this because you have Fog Creek, which is obviously a business that throws off some nice cash flow for you. You built Stack Overflow for a year and a half or 2 years before you went out for money?
Yeah, and it wasn't even Fog Creek money. We didn't need money to build it. It was almost nothing. I mean, the first person to quit and work full time on it was Jeff Atwood, and he had some money saved up. And well, we were making money off of little display ads and stuff like that pretty much right away. So we never needed to put a whole lot of cash into this thing.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. And so you took $6 million in cash. Valuation wasn't disclosed, or was it?
Does anybody ever disclose valuation? I don't even know why.
It gets out usually. I mean, your valuation will get out at some point.
No, but you have to know what it is, right? I mean, you obviously, well, you might know because you know, but you know, people obviously figure it out. We're not. It's the hottest startup in the valley. We're going around getting everybody wanting to invest. Yeah. There's a minimum percentage that a VC will want to own.
Yeah.
You
They're
know,
going to want 30%.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you had a 10 to 14 pre and a 12, which would be a 16 to $20 million post. Am I in the ballpark?
I don't, you know. What's interesting is that Fred Wilson is the one that wrote the blog post saying, I don't know why all these VCs feel like they have to get a certain percentage of a company.
Right, and then you're in meetings with him, he's like, listen, I need 30%.
No, they don't. The Union Square does not need anything. They were generous with the angels. They were, you know, they just want to be in on the cool deals.
Yeah, and I think they see the forest through the trees. They're going to be in this adventure with you for 5, 6, 7 years. So what does this mean now? Are you going to work on this full time? Are you the CEO? Coding Horror, your partner? Maybe you could talk about what his role will be. Okay,
I'm taking over as CEO. Jeff Atwood, Coding Horror, who is the co-founder here, is going to be CTO. We've got a couple of teams, actually. He's got his team, which is completely distributed. He works from home, and we've got developers in Texas, North Carolina, Oregon, Florida, just basically all over the place, which is kind of annoying from a paperwork perspective, but it's worth it. And then we've got the company headquarters and another development team here in New York City. Right now, for the next couple of days, we're working out of the Fog Creek office. We have another office that we're about to rent and move out into there. We've got pretty large and what will be, well, two, but a rapidly growing sales team. We're already obviously selling ads and courier services, and that'll be expanding. The truth is that's not really, I don't really count money spent on salespeople as coming out of the VC, because the truth is you only hire salespeople if they are selling more than they are costing. So, you know, maybe you need a little bit of time for them to ramp up. But, you know, if you see a sales team expanding and you see a company going from 10 employees to 100 and 90 of them are salespeople, that's entirely on the revenue side. There's no cost in those salespeople.
Correct.
And that's sort of an important thing to remember. So I don't even count the number of salespeople. I'm just going to let them grow at whatever rate makes sense for them, as long as they're breaking even on sales. And and then we have a small dev team right now, 2 people. We're going to hire a couple more here in New York. We'll probably hire a couple of administrative type people. But all in all, I think the company is going to end up being 15 to 20 employees for the next couple of years.
Awesome. I think it's going to be very successful. Obviously. Remote working, now you have the in-house team. You see a potential conflict there? I saw Jeff did a good post on working remotely, which parallels my experience with Weblogs Inc., which is 100% remote.
Yeah.
And then I had Mahalo, which is 100% in-house, but was actually originally maybe 20, 30% outside. Well, what are your thoughts? How do you resolve this conflict? You're going to have in-house team members having lunch together, and then you're going to have 6 other guys remote. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, what's working for us really well right now is Campfire, believe it or not. I hate to plug a 37 Signals product, but that solved a lot of problems for us. So just basically having a chat room that we're all in full time. If you're at work, at home, or in the office and you're not on Campfire, it's like you're absent. That's absenteeism. You're expected to be on there whenever you're at work. And that makes a huge difference, really makes it feel like people are getting stuff done. We just have to really, really concentrate on being good at Skype, being good at Campfire, being good at sending emails, whatever the communications mechanisms are. It's not my number one preference. You know what? If I had to build a company, to this day, I think it is always better to have everybody in one place if you can. But one thing I've noticed about Stack Overflow is we really get great programmers, and we can get the best programmers in the world, and we can get them in seconds. And there are people out there who love Stack Overflow and are dying to work for us. And and only a small fraction of them could actually come to the office here in New York. So there is a lot of benefit there to having kind of a worldwide Stack Overflow audience. Where it doesn't quite work is when you have to design stuff.
Yep.
So if you're designing a new thing, you really got to get everybody all in one place. And so I expect that we'll have at least twice a year, bring everybody at great expense, to New York City or something to do, the design and the planning for the next year.
That's exactly what my partner Brian Alvey did with Weblogs Inc. We do something called Code Jam every 10 weeks. And the deal with everybody, especially people who had spouses, was you get to work from home, but every 10 weeks you got to leave on a Saturday and come back on a Sunday. We do a 7-day rush, eat burgers together, go to movies together, and have a great time. It worked out fairly nice, and we did that for a while at Mahalo, but actually no more remote workers here. Since I have you on the line, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the industry, and I'm going to get Lon in here to do the news if you can
Sure.
stick around for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Impressions of the iPad. Do you have one? What do you think?
I do have one. It's kind of heavier than I expected. I was thinking of it really as a Kindle competitor. Basically, I was imagining, okay, it's Kindle, it's brighter, it's got the internet, which Kindle just has your book, which is boring. You got the internet, which is exciting. It's got video. It's the ultimate, like, sit on the desk, sit at your couch, sit in a comfortable chair, and surf or watch things. And that is what I do. I did find that it's kind of heavy enough to be a little bit annoying. Like if you want to lie on your back in bed and read it, it's a little bit too heavy for reading a book that way. And I definitely prefer the Kindle for book reading.
Yeah.
I do feel like it is kind of a game-changing thing, but it feels like iPhone 1.0, where there's a bunch of things that obviously should work but don't work. Like they just haven't been built yet, and they're obviously going to build them. Certain things like the multitasking that's got to come, and the ability to quickly move back and forth to cut and paste from the web into your emails and so forth, which you can do, but it's slow and sluggish and reminds you of the old days. So there it was in one sentence. Basically, I'm pretty bullish on it. I think that it'll be a category. I'm surprised that I haven't yet seen really awesome CAD tools and architect tools based on the touch metaphor. Now that there's a big screen touch device readily available.
I'm fascinated with the device as well. Obviously, I'm a big critic of the sort of closed architecture, but man, the guy delivers an amazing device. The battery life, the feel of the device when you're surfing the web, I think is the most pleasurable web surfing experience. It's better than being on a desktop or a laptop for me. Agree, it's probably a half pound too big, and I don't know why they don't make it have half the battery life and take off a half pound.
Well, that'll be the light model that comes out next year.
Yeah, if they come out with the light model,
Lite,
definitely.
Yeah, iPad Air or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is I have a MacBook Air, and I just took it with me to Vegas for a couple of days, and I took it on my last trip, and I took my iPad. I didn't open it up. So I have a Wi-Fi.
What actually amazed me, Jason, is just how much of, like, I'll be sitting there on the desk. I'll be sitting there at my couch. Why do I keep saying desk when I mean couch? It's because I work on the couch so much.
Yeah.
But I'll be sitting on my couch at home, and I'll be leaning back, and on the coffee table is a perfectly serviceable laptop that's awesome and lets me do everything and has a high-res screen, and all I got to do is open the clamshell. And then I'll have my iPhone in my hand, and I'll surf the web for half an hour on my iPhone because I don't have to lean forward and open the clamshell. And I think that iPad is sort of halfway between there. It's like you do still have to lean forward to pick up the iPad from your coffee table, but it's definitely there's something about opening a laptop and waiting for it to friggin' boot up and come out of hibernate mode and log on and type your password and stuff like that.
I agree. And thoughts on the whole brouhaha with Flash, Steve Jobs,
Oh,
his missive?
I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing to add there. It's really obvious that Adobe is getting punished for delivering their apps for Windows first from about 5 years ago, and this is a karmic retribution for that Steve Jobs has added in for them ever since. That's the obvious reason, right?
Yeah, Steve Jobs pretty gangster about it, and it seems like with HTML5 now, Flash is just dead. I mean, everybody's moving off of it instantly. Is that your feeling in the developer community?
Yep, and you know what? The developer community that is whining about Steve Jobs being unfair to Flash are pretty much the same people that 5 years ago would be whining about how Flash is not accessible and Flash can't be indexed by Google, and there are no keyboard shortcuts for Flash, and Flash takes over your whole computer, and you can't control W when Flash is running, and all the whining they did about Flash being awful, you know, in the Jacob Nielsen day, and now all of a sudden they're the ones that are crying the big crocodile tears for this proprietary standard going away. On the other hand, Flash was an opportunity, and you know, and this was what happened in the Windows versus Macintosh days, is that it was a big deal as a developer to decide if you wanted to write for Windows where you got 90% or Mac where you got 4%, and making that decision was a big deal because there were no great tools where you could deliver to both platforms. And to this day, it's hard to find tools that really seamlessly let you write a very native-looking application that runs on Windows and Macintosh on the desktop. I mean, there are tools. Qt is one of them, which is now a Nokia product. But they were pretty rare. And I even remember when I was in the Excel team in the 90s, people would do things in corporations in Excel, even though it had nothing to do with the spreadsheet, with the horrible macro language that was built into Excel, because that thing could run on Mac and Windows. And so this was always a very painful problem for people. And right now, developers writing for mobile have the exact same painful problem. You got to pick your platform. There's no way to write one app and have it work on Android, Android, iPhone, and whatever is going to be next, maybe Symbian or Windows 7.
And doesn't, this being in HTML5, et cetera, sort of, what's the point of creating an app? I was looking at the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, and we're about a month or so after the launch of the iPad, and video's working on these sites now on your iPad.
Yep.
They've replaced the Flash with HTML5. It works. Yep. Chartbeat 2 works perfectly. And I don't use Chartbeat the app anymore. I just use Chartbeat the version 2.0 website. Is that what we're going to see? Like, what's the point of investing all this money in an app when you could just make a flavor of your website that's web optimized? Is that the better solution for most apps?
Well, no, there still is the issue with the web, which is, I mean, if you imagine the apps that you have on your iPhone, trying to go to them on a website, first of all, it's not going to work in the subway. Secondly, it's not going to be very fast. There's a launch time, and then it's got to download the page, and then you're looking at the page. And there are just a bunch of areas where an actual web app is not going to feel quite as native as whatever a native app is. And in a marketplace where there are 14,000 subway maps, the one that's completely offline and really fast is going to win. So there's still, for whatever reason, there's still some advantage to those native apps on every platform, although it's kind of rapidly disappearing, I think. In terms of actually like what a web developer should do, absolutely. I mean, the less Flash, the better. If you can do things in HTML5, there's almost no reason to use Flash anymore. Interesting.
I've had the same experience. Speed and offline obviously being two killer features. Lon is here to do the news. Let's do a couple of news stories.
All right.
As we get into the news, let me just thank PowerVPS. PowerVPS is a hosted service, and they've been sponsoring us from the beginning. They provide fully managed virtual private hosting with great customer service and an amazing price starting as low as $59 a month. TWiST viewers get 25% off for the life of their plans. Just use the discount code TWiST. And everybody, it is your obligation to go thank the sponsors by saying thanks at PowerVPS, at DNA Mail, and at WebSpy, and at Ustream for sponsoring This Week in Startups and providing free, great independent media, which can't be done without great sponsors. Lon, what's our first news story?
Well, we should talk about Dig a little bit. Dig cut about 12 people from its staff, about 10% of the total on Thursday. CEO Kevin Rose sent out an email to employees calling it an emotional and rough morning for everyone involved and explained that the company was going to focus more on engineering and development in anticipation of launching their long-delayed redesign. So do you think this is a good sign, or is it an indication Dig is running into some kind of trouble? And what do you think of Kevin Rose's job as CEO so far?
It's too early to tell what his what is
Sure.
you know, his CEO position and CEO tenure, but. I'm obviously good friends with Kevin. We've known each other for a while. I tried to buy the site when it was 3 months old. I offered him like $3 or $4 million for it, mostly equity, to come to Weblogs Inc. So I have a lot of respect for it. I think Dig has gone a little bit sideways in terms of traffic. I think there's a natural audience for every site, and it reached it long ago.
Yeah.
So even Stack Overflow, as great as it is, there's a certain number of programmers in the world, and at some point it reaches its natural audience. So then what do you do with a site that has reached its natural audience is a question. Engadget, same issue, Gizmodo, Autoblog, any site out there, IMDb even. You have two choices. Either you can change the mission, you know, expand the coverage, or create other sites using the same platform, which is obviously what we're talking about here with Joel. So making tough decisions like this is part of the process of how do we shake off and get this next version of Dig out. Supposedly Kevin's not totally happy with the new version of Dig, and the world has changed. People used to go to Dig or you know, TechMeme or other places for their news, or Slashdot before it, or Delicious Popular. Now, the news kind of comes to you. If I'm on my Twitter stream, I see my friends retweeting all this stuff, and by the time I get to Dig, it's like, well, what's the value of that list when I know 6 or 7 of them already? And that's his big problem. And so that's what he's trying to overcome with the new version of Dig, which will take into account social media activity.
Right, yeah.
But laying people off sucks, but it's part of the thing, you know, it's part of the game. It's part of being a good entrepreneur is knowing when you have to pivot. He's obviously pivoting.
Right.
He wants to be more efficient. It's tough. I feel bad for him. I sent him a little note telling him, you know, that when you do these kind of things, people are going to make you into a villain. And those are typically the people who have never been in that position and who are haters. And the people who've been in that position are going to feel sympathy for you and respect you for doing what you have to do to make that business work. Joel, what do you think? Do you ever have to do layoffs?
I don't even think we have to think about it in terms of the business. I think that what happens in any startup, especially a startup, a little bit of VC that has some extra money, is you tend to hire people a little bit more laxly than I would at Fog Creek, for example. And sometimes you get some bozos in there. And young companies also just don't know how to fire people that are incompetent because they're young. And I can imagine that it takes a while to learn how to get rid of people that are incompetent. They probably had a bunch of young managers that had a bunch of people working for them that weren't doing anything. And my guess is that what happened is this was an awesome time to clean house and just say, hey, you know, sorry, strategy. If you can lay off 10 people, pretend it's a layoff. It's a way to avoid doing 10 individual firings that you should have done years ago.
I'm going to agree with that. You know, a regime change is a pretty opportune time to cut the 10 weakest. He's not going to say it. These are the 10 weakest, but there are people like Jack Welch who they basically espouse, you know, cut the bottom 5 or 10%, even if they're okay or good. And I've said this before and gotten in trouble for it. But fire the good people, keep the great people.
Do you think there needs to be some serious thought into how to be appealing to the publisher still? Because it seemed like a lot of Dig's strength was in syndicating to the publisher network.
Dig button.
The Dig button.
Yeah.
And now there's the Facebook like button.
Yeah.
Seems like 450 million people get the visual of this. And
you know,
and it's a socially interactive button. You can see the people on the page.
The promise of Dig was the sort of Tom Sawyer, you know, whitewashing the fence, if you remember that story where it's like, oh, I got punished, I got to whitewash the fence, now I'm going to charge people to come and give me an apple, and I'll let you whitewash the fence for me. It's so much fun to do. It was that sort of a model, which was get people to link to you, create the SEO juice to Dig, and I would say half the traffic to Dig is from their SEO. I mean, I know I've submitted stories to Dig, or at blogs we've had our stories submitted to Dig, and they will rank higher for their comment thread than we will for the story, the original reporting.
That happens a lot.
And it happens probably happens more times than not. And so part of it is the SEO game of Google. But you know, my advice to them 4 or 5 years ago was to do one for each vertical. And I said, you know, Dig, you can see what happens on Dig. It's a bunch of young boys in this particular vertical. With a particular political...
It's a demographic, more than a vertical, I think. And they pretty much maxed out that demographic, which is the North American teenage college men that aren't quite as techie as the people that go to Reddit. And, you know, they own that. But with the Dig brand, it's unlikely they're ever going to get fashionistas. It's unlikely they're ever going to get Midwestern, you know, church family-going men. You know, they could move into other demographics, but, you know, who knows if that's the right strategy? Maybe they should just own their demographic in other channels.
That's a good point. I mean, they did own it really well in video and started a whole company based on it, Vision 3.
Yeah.
So I think either buy a bunch of sites in that vertical and sell the ads across them. You have 3 times the space, and which is sort of like the business that Fox owns. What's the video game business they own? IDG?
Oh, yeah. I know, it's IGN?
IGN. It's sort of like IGN or Break.com. You know, it's sort of.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, basically, that sounds like Break plus Dig would be the new site.
Perfect. I mean, and the crazy thing is, from what I understand, they had a $75 or $100 million offer from Yahoo at one point. They should have taken it. And so, but I think Kevin has something to prove. I think he'll be a great CEO. Next story.
Next story, well, we got to talk about location check-ins. That was the big news this week. Was all location-based. Facebook and Google both had plays at location-based services that made the news this week. Facebook's forthcoming location-based status updates will get support from McDonald's, who plan to build a Facebook app that would allow users to check in at restaurants and identify what they ordered. The fast food chain is thought to be the first of many big brands planning to build similar products directly for Facebook. On the same day, Google's Steve Lee told the location panel at the Web 2.0 Expo that Google Latitude now has 3 million active users, and 8 million users have signed up since the service launched. The sudden surge in interest is from Android phone users, but you should note that 25% of all Google Latitude users have no friends in the service. So that one's a little different because it's running all the time, so you get a really robust, like, history of everywhere that you've been, but it's obviously not social in the way that something like Foursquare, Gowalla, even Facebook's would be. So who do you think poses a bigger threat to location-based startups like Foursquare, MyTown, Gowalla? Is it Facebook or Google? And what impact does this McDonald's deal have?
Facebook likes to steal every feature they see in every startup, and they do it pretty quickly, and they do it without any ethical, moral problem with it, which is why they're hated by startups, and they're looked at as the next Microsoft. And I think actually it's going to be their downfall. I think it's the privacy issues and the sort of stealing issues are becoming these overarching issues that are identified with the brand and with Zuckerberg. That's a separate aside. Can they go in here and you know, take over the space? The problem is brands are typically identified with one thing. So even if you look at Mahalo, we're trying to do topic pages and question and answer, and that creates a huge problem for people. What is it? It's topic pages like Wikipedia or About.com, and it's Q&A like Yahoo Answers or whatever. And even that, 2 things, is very difficult to explain to people.
I always had to give it a little extra detail for people to get before
when
they
you
get
become like Facebook, you add all these features, you can't be known for check-ins the way a Gowalla or a Foursquare can, which means you're never going to be really associated with it in Excellent. And those people are doing a lot of other tools for the vendors, you know, for the location.
Yeah,
so
right.
I don't know. I don't think that they're going to make that big of a dent in it, I'll be honest.
I think there's an even bigger play involved, because from what I understand, if they're checking in and they know what's being purchased and they push that out, if Facebook starts cataloging or databasing all of your purchases, they could become this mega rewards card program on their own currency, the Facebook coins.
Right, Facebook.
That could be really interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a very interesting insight, Tyler.
Insight from Tyler.
Sort of like they're stealing, that would be like stealing Blippi and putting that inside. Basically, all my investments are being stolen and put inside of Facebook. You wonder why I'm bitter.
Right.
Joel, what are your thoughts on location-based and Facebook's big move?
Boy, I have no understanding of this so-called location-based thing. I've never understood it. People used to say they would give examples of how this location-based thing was going to work, and inevitably it involved a small local business merchandising things to people that are standing outside of the small local business or inside it, which it seems to me is the only problem that small local businesses don't have, is how to market to the people that are inside. So now, that said, it's clear that Foursquare and Gowalla have clearly found a niche and a fun thing in a particular group of people that like doing that. I would call it the bar hopping crowd or the South by Southwest crowd. I personally, in my demographic, it's just a complete mystery to me. It makes absolutely no sense.
As you get older and you have a mate and you're married or whatever, your use of social networks goes down. Like,
probably so.
If I mean, I always call social networking a dating site for people with pride. You know, like I have way too much pride to go on eHarmony or Match.com, so I'll just go on Facebook or MySpace and look at people's pictures and try to get an introduction from one of my friends. Next story.
Next story. Well, let's stay on the Facebook train. Zynga. Is Zynga planning to officially start detangling itself from Facebook? Looking increasingly likely. On Thursday evening, CEO Mark Pincus allegedly had an all-hands meeting to discuss starting their own social gaming network, Zynga Live. This is according to a TechCrunch post. The relationship between Facebook and Zynga has already been sort of soured, with the social network demanding that all payment for games be done through Facebook credits, for which they collect 30%. And Zynga's also seen their ability to send notifications from within Farmville and other games like that limited. They've already taken some steps to move out on their own by building Farmville.com. So is this doable for Zynga? Can they build an audience for these games and around their products without Facebook?
Absolutely. I sent an email to Mark Pincus and Evan Williams, which I'm going to produce and send to my email list, in which I outlined how Twitter and Zynga could partner together to slit Zuckerberg's throat before he slits their throats. And this will go down in history as one of the best emails I've ever written. And that's coming. And you know, I've written a lot of great emails.
Saying a lot.
If I can say so myself. But anyway, what I told them was, photos, right, and games are the lifeblood of Facebook. You take images out and you take games out of Facebook, it's 10% of what it is. It's a shell. So what I said was, why don't you guys make an instant messenger? That's Twitter and Zynga games, instant messenger, one tool. Launch it. You could co-brand it, or you could brand it each other, but make it interoperable. Twitter launch pictures. Launch the IM client yourself, which they sort of have the clients. Zynga launch yours. Make all your games compatible with Twitter login. Launch it on the same effing day. And just all of a sudden, you would be outside of there. And this is what Tencent and other QQ and other people in China have, is these instant messenger clients that bring gamers together.
Right.
And we just heard a social network pitch from Dinosaur for a similar kind of thing. I think that Zynga is a bigger business than Facebook. And I think Zynga will eviscerate them. And I'm going to laugh my ass off when they do, because I can't stand Zuckerberg. And I think he's a dishonest little dweeb who needs to be stopped. But I have no opinion on the subject. Joel, any thoughts?
I don't either. But you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of every time the cable networks and the cable TV companies are up for renegotiating their contracts, and suddenly you try to turn on HGTV in New York or something, and there's a little slide up saying, HGTV has decided not to distribute themselves through Cablevision this year. We tried negotiating with them. We were very reasonable, but they just refused. Zynga and Facebook, it's a distribution kind of situation, much like that, and they really have each other by the balls, and it's just not clear really who has the upper hand in that relationship, and it's never going to be healthy. It's never going to be, they're never going to really resolve this, and it's obvious that Zynga is thinking about this and trying to figure out how to make sure that they have a leg on some other platforms other than the Facebook platform. There's no question that Facebook is going to try to slaughter just about anybody that gets too successful on their platform. It's just like Microsoft Windows over the years, right? All you're doing, if you're making a Zynga or a Quora or something that's built on Facebook, oops, I said that word. All you're doing is market testing for Facebook. Yeah. Just like if you're building a Windows app, you're just basically testing the market for Microsoft. And if you're successful, they might buy you, or they might just build their own. Right. And so you're absolutely correct. And people who build their companies solely on another platform are stupid. And I know Mark Pincus personally for over a decade. He's not stupid. This has always been in his plan. I've had many discussions with him about it. In fact, was there before it was called Zynga, and he was just doing the Facebook card app, the Texas Hold'em app. And in my email to him and Evan, I said, you should do Farmville 2 only available on Twitter, and give Twitter the exclusive to it. And that's how you would basically stick it to them. And it sort of goes into Joel's thing, which is like, why do the Dolans hate the Yankees? Like when the Yankees get kicked off the system, it's like, the Dolans don't care about the Yankees. They want to see the Yankees lose. They're not real New Yorkers. And then the Dolans are like, George Steinbrenner wants all your money, and he will not put the Yankees on your cable system. Call him. It's a very good analogy. But I think Zynga actually counterintuitively has the upper hand here.
Well, they are the content. I mean, what you say about photos and the Zynga games is very accurate. It's hard to even imagine what people would go to Facebook to do if it wasn't look at pictures of their friends or play these games.
But the other thing they would do is build their social network.
Right.
And click add. But you know what? If you've done that 17 times, it gets really effing boring.
Yeah. You don't go back every day to do that. You go back once a week maybe to manage your social network.
I think it's dating, photo sharing. So it's eHarmony, Flickr, and casual games.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, old man here. I got a question for you. Do you remember Josh Harris, Pseudo?
Yeah, of course. I'm wearing a We Live in Public shirt today,
Yeah.
which is the movie about him.
Oh yeah, that's right. I knew that had to be from somewhere. So
And Josh Harris lived in my pool house for a year.
Oh, that was Josh Harris, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw him there. It was no. He was responsible for a lot of the revenue on what was it, Prodigy? I think.
Prodigy. He had the chat rooms.
Right. So it was the same kind of situation there, where he is completely dependent on Prodigy. Prodigy is completely dependent on him, and I'm sure every time they had a negotiation,
Yep.
it was just who is the better negotiator.
Yep. And Prodigy wound up writing him a big check to buy him out. That's how he started Pseudo. Famous story.
So
And he was
maybe that's the
making
same.
a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah. All
So
right.
that might be the same story here with the Zynga and Facebook.
Okay, let's do a last story, last news story.
Wow, it's just so much to talk about. We'll talk about the stock market. That was a big one this
Sure.
week. For unknown reasons, so far it's still murky exactly what happened. Blamed on everything from a simple typographical error to massive fraud, the stock market plunged a shocking 998 points, losing over $1 trillion in market value before recovering by the close. Exelon, Accenture, Philip Morris were among the 27 major U.S. stocks that lost more than 90% of their value. The SEC has plans to investigate the cause of the crash and ensure that no one intentionally exploited the situation illegally in order to profit. Although who could suspect such a thing of Wall Street? The real-time web seemed to have a lot of trouble keeping up with the activity. Google and Yahoo Finance both crashed. CNN's headline was way out of date before it was even posted. Major problems were reported with stock trading services such as E-Trade. Even Twitter updates seem to be running several minutes behind. So is the real-time web sort of a myth? I mean, is it really capable of keeping up when the news itself is changing minute to minute? And are people who rely on tech and the net to keep them abreast of what's going on in the market at a big disadvantage?
No, because these stories tend to break. You can go back to me, by the way. You don't have to show the chart for the whole time. These stories tend to break on the web, and you're going to get your information there. The problem is high scalability on a global basis has changed. The number of people online and the number of devices online. You hear that the stock market crashed. You pull out your iPad, you pull out your iPhone, you pull out your BlackBerry. You're on a desktop. Some people might be pulling out two simultaneously, and so it's just creating a magnitude more of traffic. And you saw this with TMZ, which we were involved with. We powered it with Blocksmith software, Brian Alves' incredible creation. And in terms of scalability, we had to build things that could handle when Michael Jackson died, all that kind of stuff. You're talking about tens of millions of people coming in a certain period of time, or the Steve Jobs keynotes. And people are just learning how to build highly scalable applications on the web. And obviously, Yahoo Finance is not one of them. They may get 1 million people a day or a couple million people a day, but 20 million people coming, no. And you have to rewrite your application. And I went to Google Finance, was as fast as ever. Yeah. So people just are not caching. They're not using, delivery systems. It's so stupid. People in this day and age should know better than to have like database calls or inserts or little stuff on a website that could become highly trafficked. And they just haven't done the work to be highly scalable. That's all. And Twitter obviously has got its own issues, which is, people want to express themselves. Well, if you're going to express yourself, that means you're not just passively reading information. That's one challenge, to just cache reading something. Now you've got 1 million people who want to say, holy shit, Yeah. Now, or 10 million people want to say that, or 100 million people. It's going to get to the point where 1 billion people are going to want to say, rest in peace, Michael Jackson. And what database solution does that? Cassandra's in 0.6. We try to get help on Cassandra here, and it's like, well, who do you talk to? Nobody. People literally are changing the source code.
You could ask on Stack Overflow, and somebody might be able to help you there.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Stack Overflow. What are your thoughts on this high scalability issue?
The people that are actually depending on things like immediate stock quotes within a certain amount of time are getting them. They have very special contracts. They pay a lot of money, and they specify down to the millisecond exactly when they'll get one information. And in fact, I think it's down to the microseconds and the nanoseconds in some cases, like spelled out in the contract. What they get, they like literally put servers that are physically close to the exchanges because of the speed of light, literally. You know, the people that really depend on that, I don't think are going to really be doing much complaining. In terms of like everything else breaking down, I mean, come on, go 10 years ago, how long would it take you to have gotten this information? I mean, I remember hearing about the Dow crash by seeing the newspaper the next day, and that was 1987. You know, you're walking down the street and you look at a newspaper and it says Dow down 500 points or whatever it was in the first October 1987 crash. So. You know, if it takes 3 seconds or if CNN is not refreshing right away, come on, people. That was just invented 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, it is a fair point. I mean, people are the data entitlement, the real time entitlement factor is pretty high these days.
Oh,
I mean,
it's very true. I mean, Google Docs, I notice when that goes down, Google Docs is amazing.
Yeah.
And when it goes down for 10 minutes, there's thousands of people outraged.
How dare you turn off my free word processor?
And it's like if you 10 years ago were like, there's a free spreadsheet program everyone can use and collaborate.
With unlimited storage. You don't need to buy extra floppy disks.
It's all in the cloud. You can access it from wherever you are.
Backed up forever for free.
You'd be amazed, and then now it goes out for 5 minutes, and it's like my whole world is crashing down.
People can't figure out where their text editor is. I don't think I think a lot of young people don't even know what applications on their desktop are. They're like, well, they don't even grow up with
the whole
Office.
idea of like open Office and then open Word and then start typing is.
Yeah, well, I mean, who would open Word? That takes 6 minutes to open that application.
Just go to Google Docs.
Okay, give us one last story.
One last story. Well, I'll give you a choice, as I often do. We can talk about Quedit. We talked about them once before. We can talk about Tweety Mail, which is just a crazy idea, and then we can talk about the Borders e-book store.
What do you think, Joel? You pick.
I've never heard of any of those.
Fair enough. Well, let's do Quedit then.
We not Quedit again.
No?
I can't.
We talked
it's
about
just
them
the
once
name.
before.
All right, so do Quedit because now I've got everybody intrigued.
All right. Well,
I just hate saying Quedit.
We just talked about them once before, so I thought it'd be good to do a follow-up. It's a payment system for online games. Users request credits with the promise that they'll pay back the money later, but there's no punishment if you don't pay the money back. You just get kicked out of the system, and the people who pay back get to stay. So users who want to pay, they can mail in the cash. They can go to 7-Eleven and pay. And that taking care of it in like 3 or 4 different ways. If you don't have PayPal, you don't have a credit card. Anyway, according to TechCrunch and according to a post on the company's blog, the system's working. 33% of all money loaned out by the site has been repaid. Over half of those payments come within a week of the original loan. And the data seems to suggest that after a user makes the first payment, they're very likely to pay back all future loans. So it's like once you're in, you're sort of in. Right. Even more importantly, perhaps, Quedit reports that the game publishers are seeing a 5% overall jump in revenue, which would make the service almost an essential, you would think, for game publishers who wanted to tap a market that doesn't have credit cards or PayPal accounts. So now that we've got a little bit of data back on what they're doing, do you think this is long-term a sustainable model? And would there be concern that as it gets more and more popular, you're going to get a lot more people defaulting on these loans?
Number one, I think that repayment rate is going to be greater than some of the mortgage-backed securities that Goldman originated.
It's hard not to be.
Or I think that Greece might pay back less than Quedit.
Yes,
people playing Farmville.
We should put Greece on Quedit and see how
I just want to say overall, I really don't feel like I should comment on this story because I feel like I'm in a William Gibson novel that we're talking about a credit rating for virtual currency in games where people are buying virtual currency to build virtual farms. I mean, the absurdity of this is ridiculous because you know what's coming next. I'm going to launch a service called Quedit Advisors, and I'm going to clean up people's Quedit.
Your Quedit score?
I'm going to increase your Quedit score.
Derivatives, right?
I would like to bundle the
That's brilliant. You gamble on whether people will pay back their credits.
Generally on your thoughts on virtual currencies and people's Quedit scores.
Isn't the U.S. dollar a virtual currency?
Well played. All right, this has been an amazing show. Joel, you're a great guest as always. Congratulations on raising money. You couldn't have better partners.
Thank you.
Everybody go check out Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange and vote for which site you'd like them to do next. Thank you, Tyler, for your wonderful insights. And Lon, great news. Congratulations on your new job. Kill yourself. That's our new joke now whenever anybody quits the company. But you are leaving Mahalo after 3 long years.
3.5.
3.5 years. You were employee number 3 or 4.
I was guide number 3 at Mahalo.
Guide number 3, employee number 4 or 5.
January of 2007.
Yeah.
Which is odd to
you
think
were
about.
pre-launch. You did an incredible job here. I found you through a Craigslist ad. We've become great friends over the years. You've sat next to me. You've been an incredible asset. And now you're leaving Mahalo.
Yes.
And I'm thrilled to say you're leaving Mahalo for a company, thisweekin.com, that I co-founded with Kevin Pollak Malik, and now Mark Jeffrey,
The company behind this very show.
This very show. Mark Jeffrey left Mahalo as CTO after about the same period of time to become the CEO. So it's just awesome to see you guys leave the company that I'm CEO to go run your own company, and I wish you guys great success with it.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Good luck,
Thank you.
and Joel, good luck with your adventures.
Thanks.
Thank you to our sponsors, DNA Mal, WebSpy, PowerVPS, and Ustream. We're taking the entire team to see Iron Man 2 tonight at the Gold Pass Theater. That should be a blast. I taped the high-stakes poker game, which is the PokerStars
Big game.
PokerStars Big Game. $200,000 in front of me, playing against Doyle Brunson, Daniel Negreanu, just amazing players. And
Legends.
this is a $10, $20 million production. It's going to be on Fox June 14th. I would tell you guys what happened, but I'm not allowed to under contract.
NDA.
NDA, I cannot say, but let me just say this. I was involved in multiple pots that were 5- and 6-figure pots of poker. It was insane. It was the peak experience. Thank you to my friends at PokerStars for including me. And we'll see you next week on This Week in Startups.
Tell by my attitude that I most definitely from